We are back. It has been a long week for Baschamania. Only got 2 episodes out in April, and now we got 3 out this week. And to be fair, Aaron and I have been trying to do a show for a month and a half since NCAA's. And then, there was the Olympic trials, and then it's been crazy. But I'm so glad we waited to do this because now you are an Olympian, which I've known you for a long time. It kind of gives me chills. I had Kennedy Blades on earlier in the week, and we were talking about, I can't believe how fast time flies, where she was on here 3 years ago as a junior world champ. And I'm like, man, what an upgrade from junior world champ. You come back on and you're an Olympian. So maybe that's a word for junior world champs. If you want to be an Olympian, this is the path.
Come to that show, man. Come to that.
I love it, man. So, yeah, we got Aaron Brooks back in the podcast again, and a really fun show ahead. We're going to kind of go through his college career, go through the Olympic trials, touch on some extremely popular news subjects, and we'll just have some fun for an hour or so. So, Aaron, as I was working on this and coming up and doing prep, it's crazy because even if you did not wrestle at the Olympic trials, what you just did in college is bananas. And that alone could be a whole episode. Somebody here winning their 4th NCAA title, winning a Hodge Trophy. These are things in and of itself that would warrant, they're lifelong accolades. Being a Hodge Trophy winner, there's 6 or 7 now 4-time champs. And now that's almost old news. Does it feel that way for you?
Man, bro, in a way, yeah, because things go so quick. I think having the trials, I didn't really have much time, which I like, but I didn't really have much time to think about, what just happened in the NCAA season. Because it was kind of for a week rest, let the body heal, and then kind of back to work. So it's like the blink of an eye, kind of snap of the finger, where it's like, man, it just so quick and goes so quick. So, it's pretty cool though.
Most people don't one-up their accomplishments that fast. So hats off to you. But I do want to go back and talk about the collegiate season a little bit. You were 22-0. You had 90% bonus rate. The only 2 matches that weren't bonus were a decision win against Zach Glazier and then your finals win over Trent Hidley 6-1. Everything else was just lights out. Reflecting back on the season, now that you've had a month and a half, and I know you've been, focused on Olympic trials, but reflecting back on this final collegiate season, what do you think about the most?
Honestly, man, I think about it was just great preparation. I know the previous seasons I went into, or heading into the college season, I didn't have the same mindset I had this year. And I thank the Lord for that. But every way I went wrestling this year, I looked at it as preparation and a test. So whether it was wrestling sick, wrestling a little banged up, previous seasons of my life, I would be like, okay, we can sit it out, and not that I was forcing it, but I was just putting my faith in the Lord. I'm like, He's put me in situations to act on faith. I don't care about the worldly things. If I lose, if I only beat a guy by a couple points, so I think this season, looking back, I'm like, man, I'm glad I took those risks, because it made me lack nothing, so it put me in a situation where I'm kind of comfortable where I didn't used to be comfortable,
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I remember I've had Yanni and Carr and other guys come on, and as somebody trying to, tell a story and see somebody's heart and interest, you ask them questions like, okay, you won a national championship, now do you want to do it with a Hodge? Now do you want this? And it's funny how so many college wrestlers obviously focus on wanting to win a Hodge, and it's funny hearing you say how, you didn't care if you only won a match by a couple points. Were you focused at all on winning the Hodge? I got to imagine when you have such a high bonus percentage that you're at least thinking about it to some degree.
Yeah, I think you hear about it right away. If I go on social media and it's like, they do the Hodge race kind of throughout the year.
Yeah.
So I'd see it. Okay. But every time I'd wrestle, I focused on being present. And if I'm present, what happens happens. So I think if I focus on the Hodge, even the expectation, I think expectations kind of they can drain you or you kind of defeat yourself. So I don't put expectations on myself in a match. Whoever I'm wrestling, I don't expect to get a tech fall, a pin, a major. I just go out there and I'm present, and what happens happens. So even with the Hodge, towards the end, I saw more and more posts about it, but I was like, I'm just gonna go be present, and what happens happens.
I'm sure a lot of those were mine, but I did, to be fair, put you at the top of the list. I did say, like, it was funny because I had said heading into NCAAs that I thought you were the favorite, and if Trent Hidley beat you in the finals, I'm like, you got to give it to Trent. I'm like, those are, I think, my two, or I'm like, or I think I said if Messenbrink won too, to go undefeated. But it's crazy because your year ended with another Hodge contender, and I think anybody would have put him in that race when he was undefeated, had a bonus rate in like the 80% range. Like, he was an incredible competitor. That one match, literally, he beats you, and I think he could get the Hodge. What was it like having, collegiate wrestling, obviously the weights are stacked. It's best wrestlers in the country, but when you have a guy of that caliber in your weight, do you focus on anyone more than others, or is it just whoever's before you're going to go out and compete?
Yeah, really, whoever's before me. I think one thing I really worked on this year is remaining the same. I think that's your character. When you change for different things or different opponents or different circumstances in life, you kind of put yourself in a negative point because it's like, okay, because I got to be this person when this event happens, and the next person, you kind of have multiple personalities.
Yeah.
So I think for everything the same, building that character, because like I like to say, callousing your character, hardening it. So any match, any competitor, I look at it the same, because I don't want to treat anything different when it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And, another cool aspect to your season, the fact that Penn State setting a team points record. And I got incredibly lucky with Kale becoming a client of mine and then starting to root for Penn State because he moved to Penn State. If Penn State was your average program right now, I'd still be rooting for them because of how, it came about. But then to have the success, even as a fan, and, those guys being a client of mine, it's all fun. But as a guy on the team, going out there and not just winning 4 titles, you had a teammate, Carter Starachi, win 4 titles. You guys set the team points record. What was that like to be a part of arguably the greatest dynasty in college sports right now?
I had a lot of fun wrestling for Penn State. And I think this year, even going into the season, a lot of people were like, was this the greatest Penn State team ever? And I can't answer those questions. That's like if you talk about Michael Jordan and LeBron, like it's all opinionated.
Jordan.
It's it's like I say Jordan too. But but it was fun, man. Being a part of this team this year, it was a lot of fun. And maybe just because of my senior year and I was taking in a lot more, but it was a lot of fun. Like this team, and I think it speaks volumes. Also, I know people were talking about 3-point takedowns, the reason why I broke the record. But hey, I mean, it is what it is, But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I saw some people with that, and it's like, I saw Tom Ryan was going at people with talking about, yeah, but it's easier to get bonus point. Whatever. Rules are always going to evolve. You also have NIL, and you also have social media, and there's a lot of factors that continue to evolve with it. For you, we talked on the phone the other night for an hour, and we could have probably talked for 3. You are somebody who I feel like converses very well, and you are a joy to always talk to. But with social media, it's funny. You're a man of few words. Oftentimes it's whatever scripture's on your mind. It's whatever scripture's on your heart. It's usually very, very close or very short scripture. With your teammates being a leader, what was that role like for you? It's one thing to be a senior. It's another when you're a very dominant senior and you kind of got the best of both worlds. You're not just one of the best in the team. You're also one of the older guys. What was that role like for you this year?
I think it was a blessing for me, because, like I said, every match I wrestled. Well, I remember I was sick in Iowa, and then I was like, all right, I don't want to wrestle Rutgers. We wrestled Iowa on a Friday,
Yeah.
and then we had the Rutgers like a Monday because it was weird because of the BJC was getting taken out for Thon, the event that Penn State hosts, and I'm like, man, I don't want to wrestle. I don't feel good these things, but I'm like, you know what? Like the guys that look to me, or might look up to my teammates. I want to lead by example, So I want to take that leap of faith, and then I ended up wrestling their backup. But even if I was ready for the starter, Poznanski, I'm like, hey, regardless, so just leading by example, but also, I think one thing about being a leader that Chrysler showed me, is meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
He came back on earth, so like being able to relate and find something that I can kind of bond with each teammate is something I look forward to every day. Like each of my teammates, I have nicknames for them, but just being myself.
I need to hear a couple of the nicknames. Give me a couple nicknames.
Bernie B. I call Bartlett BB. Greg's Big Smeesh. But Rock, like I got out there. There's a lot.
I love it.
Balls Abdul, so like just things, just trying to be just to relate to everyone. I think that's one thing is meet people where they are, and then also just leading by example. Sometimes, like you said, it's a few words said. It's just going out there and doing it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite match, whether it's from the season or your collegiate career? It's funny because I got into a rhythm or a habit of asking this after people started surprising me with matches that maybe it was when you were sick or it was a quarterfinal match to All-American your first year, whatever it might be. It, as a fan, we look at things and we say the obvious. It's like, oh, well, your NCAA championship with Amin after losing to him or whatever. There's a fan perspective from yours. Do you have a favorite match or two that really stick out?
I got a good bit of matches. That's like I can maybe give you one from each year.
Okay.
Like freshman year, my favorite match was me versus the rematch versus Vens at Big Tens.
Okay.
And then sophomore year, I guess that was like the COVID year, kind of.
Yeah.
We didn't get to wrestle a lot, but I had a good time wrestling in Wisconsin that year. I just felt good. And then I'd say the next year would be the Amin matches. That the trilogy was a lot of fun. The year after that, probably the Caleb Romero match in Big Tens.
Yeah.
Because, and that's like, I'm going to say the Zach Glacier match this year as well. But one thing I love to do is, like, whenever you wrestle folk style a lot of times, right, like, guys are good at playing the game. Like, guys are good at, not taking too many shots, looking like they're active and then kind of backing out. And I'm not calling anyone out, right? But I beat Caleb by, like, 3-2 with some weird stuff in Ohio State. And then I'm like, you know what? Like, I know what really happened. I know, like, kill it, man. Like, I know, like, that was some weird stuff. You got the ref, the politics, whatever. And I was like, I'm going to really go after this guy this time. Like, I'm going to make sure he knows, like, hey, get down. Kind of the same with Glacier. I said I was sick in Iowa. It's a good test, right? You're in a Carver, and they're going to go crazy regardless. It's just, for me to stay present, it was a blessing. But I knew that the next time wrestling my Big Tens, I'm like, all right, like, this ain't the same how it was, Like, I feel really good today. And if I didn't, I'd go do the same thing. But I feel like, let's go have fun. It was in Maryland, So, yeah, that was cool.
Well, so you avenged the Vens loss, and you avenged the Amin loss. Do you need, like, a bonus match now to avenge the Marcus Coleman loss?
That's the only one I haven't avenged. But
yeah.
He wrestled. I think he still. I didn't know if he was competing, but I saw he wrestled 86 kilos.
So he came back. He was at Davison with Carr's brother, I believe, and they announced he was coming back to compete at the Cyclone RTC. So maybe we can run that one back, the freestyle scene.
Yeah, he was 97 before. I was gonna say I might be too big, but he can go 92 kilo. But
yeah,
he's a good. I remember. I think for me that was a big test of my faith. I was really pulling from the world, and I remember I've been like, because things happen in a bizarre way sometimes, and that's when I feel like it's the. But literally that week we're in New Orleans. I'm preaching to my teammates. I'm doing Bible studies while we're there. I'm like, wrestling doesn't define us. It's not our identity. Wins and losses don't matter. And then I get boom, like some weird match, crazy roll to my back. Like I fight back, almost come back down by 2, and I'm like, now you gotta practice what you preach. You know, and I just remember got up and I was like, yeah, like that's the first time I really felt free. You know, so I think God was showing me like, let's see if you're really pulled from it. And let's see if you continue to seek me, because I was going through a
Love
lot of
that.
stuff that time, some problems with my body. Like I wasn't even really supposed to be wrestling. Some school stuff. You know, a lot of stuff was going on, and that was like the Job. You know, that final test. Like 5 things in my life. Like okay, now you're gonna lose as well. You know, like we have the free will, but I was like, man, all right, like this is a test of my faith, and then remaining sense. I mean, and wins and losses don't mean anything, but ever since that match, I don't care if I lose at all. Like there's nothing in me that because then I lost in June to David, and I was
Yep.
like, oh, like that's and that was like, man, I'm freed. You know, so I think that
I
was something
love
that
that.
really.
What went into before we transition in a minute here to the Olympic trials? What went
Yeah.
into the decision before the season to compete at the U23 World Championships?
So I thought I was qualified for Olympic trials for being a national team member the previous year. But this is like, and I was going to go regardless. I told my coaches, even if I make the senior world team,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to U because a lot of the guys that are on the senior team in other countries are U23.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I was like, regardless, I'm going to go. But then I lost, and I also found out I wasn't qualified for the trials. I was like, okay, well, I was going to go anyways, but now let's go win.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just good practice, good competition. I think anytime you can get overseas and compete in a world championship, you know, whether it's age group or not, you should go. You know, so I was like, let's just go do it. Let's stay active. And yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. So, heading into the Olympic trials, you just came off your 4th NCAA title, Hodge Trophy winner. And it's funny, we talk about you being the big dog. You're the senior in the room, you're the 4-time champ, you're the leader. And then there's this transition to essentially the senior level full time where you're the baby now. You're at the
Yeah.
bottom of the ladder. You know, there's other guys out there with 4 NCAA titles, with multiple Hodge trophies, with world Olympic gold. What's your perspective heading into the Olympic trials?
My perspective really, once again, just stay present. You know, I think when you make things bigger than what they are, you just give yourself a chance to, you know, put pressure on yourself, think negatively. You know, so like I said, even throughout my whole college season, I'm like, every match is a chance to approach everything the same. Because if you do that, even on the senior level, approach it the same. Approach everything the same. You
Yep.
know, so that's what you've been doing. Keep doing that. You know, don't think about, oh, well, now this is freestyle and you got to watch the push out and you got to, you
Yeah.
know, whatever. No, just wrestle, be present. You're present. It's a blessing. So, you know, I was just like, go wrestle, be present, enjoy it. And
Well, and what's your expectations coming into it? Because, you know, mine are publicly documented. I tweeted out after I'll tell you the exact second I tweeted it. It was when you had that explosive takedown against Hidley in the finals. I said Brooks is winning the Olympic trials. And I
yeah,
got a lot of flack from people. Like, this is still David Taylor's time. Chael Sonnen was like, maybe in 2028. You know, there's a lot of people. And I'm like, listen, I get it. I get it. David Taylor's #1 pound for pound in the world. I'm telling you, Aaron Brooks is going to win. But
yeah,
for you, and we'll talk about the David Taylor matches in a few minutes, but for you specifically, just expectation-wise overall, heading into the Olympic trials, where I remember having this talk with Nolf before, where it's like, your Olympic trials is essentially world championship. You got a
yeah.
guy who's a 4-time world champion. You got a guy who's, you know, owned a rivalry with Yazdani, one of the greatest in the world. What's your expectation heading into the Olympic trials for yourself?
Yeah, my expectation isn't even the thing that I try to focus on, because you know, I don't have expectations for any match, but my expectation in a tournament is just reminding myself one match at a time.
Yeah.
You know, because it's real easy. Like NCAA tournament, Big Ten tournament, Olympic team trials, world team trials. There's a lot of good guys and like world class guys, so it's easy for me to go into that tournament like, can't wait for this match, can't wait for this match. When I
Yeah.
got a first 2 rounds, and then, you know, so really just focusing on one match at a time. I've always, you know, tried to throughout my whole life, one match at a time. You know, don't get too far ahead.
Yep.
and that just helps keep one match at a time, and then go wrestle.
I love that. There's so many golden nuggets here for younger wrestlers listening, and even senior level guys listening about this common theme of staying present in one match before you, and I hope people are really soaking that in. So going through the bracket a little bit, your match with Connor Mirasola, a future Penn Stater, he got a takedown against you, and that arena erupted. And, it was funny being in the arena because it wasn't really, when it was a NLWC versus NLWC guy or a future Penn State versus a Penn State guy, there was excitement for whoever was scoring points. There wasn't really booing towards the other guy. It was like, we're just going to cheer for points. Yeah. What was going through your head when they were cheering as you were getting taken down?
I got taken down, and that first match for me was tough. That was a tough match for me. Like 86 kilos, not easy. So I had to get that. But I was just trying to say, like I said, stay present. I got taken down. I've been taken down before. Even though I didn't get taken down all season, I get taken down. Wrestling with Snyder and guys like that. So it's like, just keep wrestling. You hear stuff, and that's why it's like it's a blessing when you wrestle the collegiate season. Because even when someone like Zach Glacier got to my leg, and Carver, and they went crazy. Like he just got to my leg. Like he just got to my leg, and you guys are going crazy. Okay, cool. But I think
you gotta love Carver for that. Like, I'm a Penn State guy through and through, but like you gotta give Iowa their flowers for their fans. They're crazy in a good way. Where, like you said, they get to your leg, and that place just erupts.
They're very educated. You can just get to whatever. They know you like a Russian tie. You get to it, they go crazy. Like, oh yeah, this is his move. So, but that first match, man, that was cool, and then to kind of see, what's coming into our room, I think was really cool for me. Both of them are so, they work really hard. They love the sport, so I'm excited for them to come in. I think they're gonna do great things, and we got a lot of guys. Like I think people can kind of, and we'll talk about the coaching and people leaving, but it's Lord replaces it right for us. We got 2 more guys that are gonna come in and get a lot better, and many more young. So it's pretty cool.
So the next match, your match with Zahid, one of the craziest matches of the weekend, I think. He gets that 4-point takedown. You score 4 unanswered. There's the Singlet poll, which had Twitter in a divide. What are your thoughts on that match?
I just think most people are ignorant. I think and they're biased, right? Like I think if you look at the scenario and the situation we were in, like this is after, I'm pretty sure it's after the JB got booed and a bunch of stuff. So the wrestling community is already hostile towards Penn State. Mm-hmm. And so I think you watch that match back, me and Zahid. I got a takedown on the edge. I only got 1 because the whatever you said, the ref was in the way. No, that's 2 points. I believe I should have got 1 at the end of the first period. So many points where it's like you say this single count. You gave Brooks the match, but if you look at it, it is beautiful 4-point takedown he had. But that was the only real points he scored. Like all the other points, like he had 5 points. He had the shot clock, which they're going to put 2 people in the shot clock. It just goes back and forth. Yeah. So I didn't really count 1 takedown. I pushed this dude out of bounds and took him down. Like that's where all my points came from, 1 shot and 1 shot clock. So like, and then I guess a caution at the end. But I don't. I scored more than him. I pushed the action more than him. So for guys to boo-hoo about a single call, I think it's ignorant. You go watch the match. Come on now. Like,
and I do think
as well,
Yeah, I do think more people the next day when you watch the video and you actually see it, it did look like there was more intent. Because I basically kind of stayed out of the initial debate because I'm like, I'm not a rules guy. But when I watched it the next day, I'm like, ooh, that definitely looks like more intent. And then you saw the rule sticklers kind of like, my argument was, if the ref didn't give it to you and the coach is challenged, I think they would have had to. I think it was obvious and intentional enough that the refs would have had to give it to you. So, that
happened twice. Well, the first time he pulled it once, but the second time he pulled it, and this is where I was like, the Lord's got me, man, because he pulled it, And the mat ref was like, no, that's one. The table refs, the side refs were like, and the mat ref was like, no, I saw it. Like, he doubled down on it. Like, he wasn't just going to, like, white paddle it. Like, he was like, no, I saw this. Like, this is one. You know, because they were first, like, white paddle, and that's why I was like, okay, like,
yeah,
it worked.
Yeah, that's crazy. So then, but, you know, so that's the semifinals on Friday night. And now, before we talk about the David Taylor matches, I want to talk about the fact that the format of this tournament sucks. Because you were cutting weight until, like, what, 1, 2 a.m.? Talk to me about after that match and having to cut weight and dealing with the timing of this tournament.
Well, this is what I found out. So I got off the mat with Zahid. I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to have to go sweat and get my weight off. But I didn't know that the match one of me and David was at 10 a.m. session.
Okay.
Because I've done this before in the NCAA tournament when I was making 184. Even this year, 97. Like, you wrestled last year upper weight, and then you go and you're losing weight until 1 or 2 a.m. You wake up at 5:30. You check your weight. You lose your weight for the weigh-in at 7 or 8. You know, like, I've done that before, but that's on the third day at NCAAs whenever I don't wrestle till 7 p.m. So I'll do that and then the day, eat, and then go wrestle the finals. But this, you know, it's like 12:30, and then Coach Casey's like, yo, no, match one's at 10 a.m. And I'm like, oh, wow, so I'm going to be here till 1 or 2, get home, sleep for 3 hours. And it's hard to sleep, too. You're cutting weight. You know, it's like, all right, sleep for 3 hours, wake up, go in, come back, sleep, lay down for an hour and go wrestle this guy. You know, and it's like, that's why I say praise the Lord. He carried me through these things. That's why I know it's his will. You know, like many people, because David's obviously top of the world. You know, it's not an NCAA tournament, these things. So I'm like, man, to go beat the best guy in the world, as he would call himself pound for pound before this, you know, I needed the Lord. You know, I called on him. I'm like, listen, this your will, I need you, because you see the situation I'm in. You know, I've been up all night, been wrestling, cutting weight. You know, this guy did whatever he wanted to do. You know, so yeah, I say praise the Lord.
How much did you enjoy having this in your backyard, where you were able to go home in between and rest in your own bed, rest in between sessions? Like, I know I was talking to Carr Saturday morning, and he's like, yeah, it's nice. He's able to just go home for a couple hours. Like, he doesn't have to wrestle till probably 11:30. Like, no need to sit at the arena when your house is 10 minutes away. How nice was that, kind of being in your backyard?
It was cool. I think the coolest part, you know, outside of family being able to come in and being closer, well, there's a lot of cool parts. You know, I get to do my regular grocery shopping. I got the things I need. I know where it's at. But I got this electric bike, and I rode it to the arena every session. You know, like,
I love that.
Like people are like, yo, you want to ride? I'm like, no, I want to ride my bike. Like, it's nice out. In between the sessions, riding through State College, you know, I'm like, this, just keeping it casual. You know, I think, like, this is what I do when I go to practice, ride this bike in. Getting some sunlight, you know, letting the wind hit my face before I go wrestle. Like, I love that. You know, it helped. Like I said, being present is just like taking in on the way there, you know, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to, who was it? Nick Lee, I think, after his semis match. And he's like, yeah, bro, if you need anything while you're in town, just let me know. I'm like, dude, just go wrestle. Like, I appreciate the hospitality, but yeah, it's like people, you know, it was cool to have everything in State College. So, all right, that day you wrestled David Taylor. What's your thoughts heading into the match? The last time you guys wrestled, I think he won like 5 or 6-0, and then it was a super close match the next one. What was your thoughts heading into these two matches?
Once again, be present. Pray. Lord, you know, I knew, well, last year, funnily, like, when I wrestled him last year, and I think this is why he wouldn't wrestle me anymore, because if you've wrestled with me before, like, you know, one thing is every time you wrestle me, like, I'm figuring things out. Yeah. You know, like, and I think he knows that. So we haven't trained together in 2 years.
Wow.
You know, but we first match, final X 6-0, and I'm just trying to underhook the dude the whole time. You know, like, I'm like, no, this is how I'm gonna beat him. And then after that first match, I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna go wrestle. And I still think to this day, like I said, it's the Lord's will. But it was 5-4 match. Lost challenge, I lost, and it was 2 for exposure. I think it's iffy. You watch it, I didn't expose, but it was meant to be that way, right? And then I'm like, all right, like, literally, don't even focus on this. Like, focus on just getting better. Focus on the Lord this whole year, you know. So I'm like, I know I've gotten better. I know I've learned from the last time we've wrestled a lot. I
Yeah.
know that I can beat anyone in the world when it's God's will. So it's like just go wrestle, have fun. I think I was really grateful to be able to wrestle him in the BJC. I think that was pretty cool because you look at the first kind of Penn State guy, and then you can say the most recent. So that
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. I didn't think about it too much. I was like, you know what, like we could have been wrestling in this. We could have been wrestling the whole time. We could have been wrestling a
Yeah.
wreck. But I thought that was funny. But it's cool.
Yeah, no, it was definitely an awesome. It was, I mean, the photo of you after the second match, you and him at the center that I think Penn State tweeted out. It's like, man, what a passing of a torch! Where you have this
Yeah.
guy who's been, the face of Penn State wrestling for the past decade plus, and now this passing of a torch. So you win that first match 4-1. You get that takedown in the first match. You beat him
Yeah.
4-1. What's your thoughts going from match to match? Was that like, oh yeah, this is mine? Because I was telling somebody last night, I'm like, listen, I don't think Aaron Brooks believes he stunned David Taylor. As fans,
Yeah.
we can say that, but I think Aaron has had that confidence going into it. So what was your, you beat him that first one, and then what's going through your head before the second match?
Yeah, it was a lot of times I call it the win, like outside distractions, and a lot of people were hitting me up in between that match, and they're like, people looking out for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't a negative, but they were like, he's gonna come out a lot harder. He's gonna come out a lot harder. Expect him to come out a lot harder, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
that's better for like that's better for me. But just tell myself like it's not over, and like
Yeah.
stay, it's not over. Don't think about that match. Like it's not over. You gotta wrestle him again. So and then if he wins, you wrestle him again. Like as many times you gotta go, you wrestle him again. So I wasn't expecting to win, wasn't expecting, just wrestling, because if I expected to win and I lost, then I'm mentally defeated because I'm like, man, now I gotta wrestle again.
Yeah.
So if we wrestle, whatever happens, like I'll wrestle. We might be here till 1 a.m., but who cares? So,
Especially with USA Wrestling determining the schedule, you will be there till 1 a.m. So,
a good bit of breaks. Yeah.
so you win the next one 3-1, and you do it pretty soundly. I mean, you won 4-1 and 3-1. And was there any aspect of like not surprised that you did it, but what's that level of like, man, David just had the press conference today, and he said that like him and Gilman just finished their competitive careers. Like David Taylor's officially retired. And I had said, I thought if Burroughs, Dake, or Taylor, these guys in their early to mid 30s, if they lose, they're very likely done. So I had kind of thought right then and there, like Brooks just retired one of the greatest of all times. What was going through your head after the match?
Not too much, honestly, man. I was trying to get out of there. Like at first, I'm walking off the mat, and I know I got to do interviews. I want to see my family, but really, the main reason I did that, and this is not too much on backstories, but was to bring people to the Lord. Because, and this isn't me pushing anything against anybody, but I know that, me and David have different views, different beliefs, and he and a couple other guys, right? Most of the ones I left with him would watch me, and they would game plan. They would do all these things. Like they would try to manipulate the room, manipulate the settings to their advantage. And, for me, last year looking in on that, I'm like, okay, I focused too much on it, right? And it showed when I wrestled them, especially that first match. And this year, I'm like, like I said, once again, learning to love my neighbor, learning to love those who don't see things the same way as me. But I think just hoping that it brings them to the Lord, because I think when sometimes people not necessarily need a miracle in order to come to the Lord, but like they do, a lot of times they do. Just hoping that they realized, like, hey, okay, we game plan for this guy basically for 2 years straight. We had technique sessions about this guy's style. We emulated his style as best we could. We had the game plan in the corner wrestling him. He's wrestling the whole trials bracket, and he's cutting weight, and he's up till 2 a.m. And it's like, I want them to know that the only reason I defeat that guy is because of the Lord. All the odds were stacked against me. So to make an excuse or to, say, you're lying to yourself. So I that was what I'm thinking. I told Don, my teammate and brother, I said, I hope they believe now. Because if they don't now, their hearts are hardened.
Yeah.
That's they don't believe now. If they don't see, like, I'm in the sauna a day before. It's me, David Carr, a couple other guys.
Carr, not to interject, but everybody listening needs a David Carr in their corners. That dude came out of nowhere when you were about to compete, and I swear it was like his own flesh and blood competing. That guy standing there, I was standing next to him, and it's just like, man, I posted it, and I posted something along the lines of, like, root for your friends like David Carr roots for Aaron Brooks. Like, that's today's lesson.
Because, and I know we'll get into this, and I'm gonna wrap around what I was saying, but David Carr came just for me, and many people don't know, like, I wasn't even cleared to wrestle in the tournament until the day before, until Thursday, right? Because the things that came out in Albania, which we'll get into, but I wasn't even clear, man. But David Carr came in, I saw him, and I'm still preparing as if I'm going to the tournament, and my face lit up, dude. Like, the Holy Spirit, man. We came in and we prayed, we had a worship session, and then next day I'm cleared. I'm in the tournament. As long as it took, I'm cleared. I'm in. Praise the Lord. But going back to, like, what I'm thinking after wrestling David and his group of people, is I'm like, man, even when I was in the sauna and I'm going through suffering and people see it, like, I told David and I think Coach Casey, and I'm like, it's time to walk on water, because the Lord had put that in my heart. Whenever Peter walked on water, the only reason he was able to walk on water and do the miracles because his eyes were on Christ.
Yeah.
Right. And so I knew my eyes were on Christ the whole time. My heart was on Christ the whole time. I was going to walk on water. Right. Walking on water is that thing that's like, how did he do this? Once again, if you know, and the only people that know it was a miracle were those who were in the boat. Mm-hmm. Right. So the people who are close to me, like I said, the staff, my teammates, even the opponents, the Davids, like, you've seen everything because you're in the boat. So you see me walking on water. You see that it's Christ. So how can you deny the Lord now? Like, how can you not take him into your heart? And that's where I'm like, man, like they have to believe now. If they don't, that's sad, man. So just continue to pray. But
I love that, man. It's such a strong testimony of what your faith can do. And for those listening, I just had Kennedy Blades on. If you didn't listen to that, go listen to that, because she was talking about the same thing, like just putting it in the Lord's hands. And, it's a scary thing when you say, like, your will be done, and then when it comes to fruition, you feel that blessing. It's like, I released that to you, and I was already kind of coping as we do worldly, like coping with what your will may or may not be. And then when you see it come to fruition, like, I'm sure if I would have talked to you and sat in the sauna with you and with Carr and stuff, it's like, man, how you would have been thinking, not knowing how that plays out yet, is so crazy, because it's like your faith is there, but then to see it how it played out is wild. So that's crazy. So, like, you have all this stuff with David and everything, and then, like, you're now an Olympian. What's your initial thoughts and reaction to being an Olympian? I mean, that smile, for those people listening, you got to go back and watch the video because it was an instant smile, and that says a lot.
Because my first, dude, I gotta keep my weight down now. We gotta do it like, because coming out of nationals, we have like 3 weeks, which is like, it's not back to back, but it's hard to really get a good diet down to make it easier. So I'm like, all right, well, let's I gotta get my weight down, but let's do it. We got a lot more time, so but it's a blessing, it's a blessing to be out and be able to have that stage and that platform, to go out there and do what the Lord's blessed me to do. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember, I've had talks with wrestlers that end up winning gold, like Burroughs, or that don't medal, and I'm like with Molinaro. And I remember vividly those conversations, like, regardless of what happens in a few months at the Olympics, you're forever an Olympian. That is now a title that gets carried with you for the rest of your life. I just put a graphic out yesterday because it was announced that Lou Rosselli was announced as an assistant coach for Pitt. Yeah. And it's like, I even put in there Olympian, and he was an Olympian back in 1996. Like, it has been a minute, but that title lives with you forever. So such a cool accomplishment. Heading into the Olympics, you alluded to it with the Albania stuff. there was
Yeah.
these news leaked out, scattered out, whatever we want to say it was, about the whole Adderall thing.
Yeah.
And you haven't talked about it much. You've been busy competing, so I want to give you the platform to kind of, I know a lot of fans, hear when news or rumors gets leaked out and they start wondering, so best way to deal with that, address it. Your thoughts on everything that kind of came out and any insight you can give to fans.
Yeah, first and foremost, I'm surprised it took this long for people to twist it, right? The negatives and the wrongs.
Yeah.
Because even when I'm talking, like, we're surprised it took this long. Like, I thought this would happen right away. We're supposed to be like, oh, like he's using steroids, but I have no ill will against people. They're just trying to stir up the pot. They're trying to do what they do for their platform, right? And so, but I look at it and I laugh at first because I'm like, one, it's not even Adderall, dude. It was Vyvanse. Like, whole wrong medication. So I already know someone's twisting it. But what it really happened was, so I had been prescribed back for college just because I was really struggling in school. And my first overseas tournament, honestly, since I first got into college, I wrestled juniors in 2019 when I came in. I think it's like Estonia. But I go overseas and I'm still in classes. Like, people, I'm like, I'm still like mid-semester, workload, all these things. So, like, I'm traveling and I'm doing school as well, And so and this is the thing, like, whenever I went to take the drug test, I even wrote down the medication on it. Like, it wasn't like I was hiding something, but I did a prescription, which is what the doctors needed, So because they didn't bring a prescription, it flagged up as if maybe he got it off the streets. So what I then had to go do is show that I was prescribed it, get it to lawyers, and then, get it into whoever it was, WADA, USADA, whatever it is, and then they just had to put it through the clearinghouse. So that's why I was able to wrestle in trials. At first I wasn't, because they had to accept that it was my prescription, talk to the doctor that gave it to me, just make sure it was legit. And then it got cleared the last Thursday. Wow. So that was that. But like I said, I knew, and it's funny how things come out, after you win something or someone loses, right? Like, someone's going to make an excuse and they're going to kind of cry about it. That's what I said. That's all, that's someone's character, right? If you're looking for excuses, you already lost, So I just think, yeah, man, it's interesting seeing, like, you got the wrong stuff, news. But,
so is it a closed book on it now? Like, it shouldn't impact the Olympics at all because you were cleared and you're good to go for Olympic trials?
It's closed within this next week.
Sweet. I love that, man. So there you have it. And it sounds like you're confident it's going to be a non-issue. It was a paperwork thing. So one more news topic, a big one that I'm sure a lot of people want your opinion on. David Taylor gets the head coach job at Oklahoma State, and it kind of came out of the blue. It was one of those things where a lot of people thought Coleman Scott was going to get the coaching position, and it ends up being David Taylor. David Taylor announces he's taking Jimmy Kennedy and Thomas Gilman with him to Oklahoma State. I know you left kind of shortly after all the news. You're in Maryland for Mother's Day and for a camp, so you haven't been around campus and stuff too much. But what's your thoughts on the news, and what's kind of the vibe in State College right now?
State College is just chilling, man. I talked to Coach Kell before I came, and he's like, we're in good hands. Like, maybe that's because he's looking at me in front of him, and I just beat David. Maybe, he's like, David, he's happy for him. We all are in that aspect. Go coach, go do those things. But no one's really worried about the presence or not the presence because we have so many killers in the room in a good way. Not like, David, he's a good wrestler, but no man is greater than another. So him doing what he's going to go do, it's like, okay, that's cool. But my thoughts on it, man, I have there's my initial thoughts, and then there's a thoughts of maybe he did want to go coach. I think obviously if he would have made the team, he wouldn't coach anymore, or he'd be wrestling and not coaching. But I think who knows? I hope it's not an emotional move for him, right? Like, I hope he actually took the time to think about it, and it wasn't just kind of a move to make his name not attached to losing to me recently and not going to the Olympics. I hope he actually took the time and thought about it and, God willing, prayed on it. So Yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know if it's an emotional move because it happened rather quick. I
Yeah.
don't think he was because I think he fully thought he was going to be on the Olympic team. So we'll see. We'll see. Nothing but I love Gilman. Out of those three, Gilman's the guy I was probably the most close to or
Yeah.
talked to the most. So
Did you see
I'm
that
happy for
picture of Gilman yesterday with that cowboy hat? I tweeted out
yeah,
like he was born for this.
yeah. I say I'm more happy for Gilman than anyone else when it comes to
Yeah.
that move.
Yeah, Gilman. I shot him a text. It's like, man, we were supposed to get coffee in State College a while back. We didn't. I'm like, still gonna hold you to that. We got to get that. But I'm proud of you, man, to make this. That's a great position. That's a great move for him. Now that his competitive career is over, and Oklahoma State's obviously a legacy program. So hats
Yeah,
off to
Gilman.
him.
That's one that I can say he's an honorable man.
Yeah, Gilman's a good dude. So with Jimmy Kennedy leaving, there's now the assistant coach position open on the Penn State staff. I'm curious if you had to put somebody in that spot. Do you have anybody that you would say it would be cool to have this guy?
I think Nick Lee or Zane would be really cool.
Yeah.
Because weight,
Yeah.
like weight. I think Nick Lee and Zane would be really good coaches.
Yeah.
And they really care about the guys, so I think those two really good guys.
You want to talk about men of honor? I don't know if they get more men of honor than Zane and Nick Lee.
Yeah, those are honorable men. So I think if I had to, it's not my decision, but if I had to,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with those two. All right, so what's next for you? Are you gonna plan on heading to a ranking series, or you got any competition plans now?
I'm not gonna go to the ranking series this year or this summer. I guess I'm just gonna train for the Olympic Games. I got some camps I'm doing. Just got a truck, so I'm be chilling, man. Chilling, enjoying life camps. I'm busy this summer, so to add the competition, I think for me is just to get my weight down the right way and do those things. So yeah, I'm excited, man. But just training, living life.
Do you think? And by the way, if people want you to come do a camp or stuff like that, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
You go to my Instagram. I got email in my bio. That's newly set up. So I'll look at those to see those who reached out for camps, whatever inquiries, business inquiries.
And there may be a website coming, an Aaron Brooks website. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
And what's the? I have to have the email for the website link.
Yeah. Your weight, you've mentioned a lot the cut of 86 and what it is. Do you think you would transition to 92, or is that a thing that's like, I was talking to somebody about it a couple days ago, and it's like, man, if you win the Olympics, I got to imagine it makes it even easier to want to make that cut to 86, where you could sit out at Final X next year and this and that. But do you have any plans yet? I know you're a very present guy. We've talked about that a lot today. Do you have any kind of inclination in the future towards if you would want to stay at 86 or go to 92?
Yeah, I know. I can't tell you where I'd be at for the next Olympic cycle, but I know the next 3 years, my plan right now is to wrestle 92 kilo.
Nice.
It just because I grew, so
yeah, I'd say so. And 92 would be interesting because to see you and Zahid after battling at 86, battle at 92, where a much more natural weight for both of you. I never thought Zahid cut that much, and then I was told it actually is a decent weight cut for him to get down. So
yeah, he's the only other guy. Well, David's big too, but I think he's the only other guy where it's like the frame. I'm like, this guy's big.
Yeah,
like beside a lot of guys, I'm like this year 86. I'm like I'm big, but Zahid's big as well. But that makes sense. He wrestled 92.
Yeah, and he wrestled great. I think he won a world medal last year at 92. So, all right, man. I'm wrapping up all my questions. Anything else final before I let you go here?
Man, thank you, brother, for having me come on. I know it's been a while, but thank you, man.
Listen, it's been fun. It's always such a blessing. It's like, we chatted for an hour the other night, and it's like sometimes I wish I could just hit record on those conversations and just publish them. Because that was the genesis of this podcast, where it's like, man, obviously there's things we both say that you can't say in a public forum, but even if you could just take 90% of it, 80% of it, and put it out there, like, I'm grateful that, you know, we can do this after having an hour conversation to then putting one out that people can watch, because you've got a lot of fans, man. You got a lot of people rooting for you. And listen, if it sounds good with you, I'm thinking we do another episode mid-September, early September, maybe after you got an Olympic gold hanging around your neck, and we can talk about that experience in Paris, man, because that's going to be fun.
Hey, brother, God willing, let's do it.
So, all right, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on, man. Go enjoy that new truck, and we'll chat soon.
We'll talk soon about the website, man.
Oh, yeah, that's going to come in a couple minutes here.
All right, brother.
All right, buddy. See ya.
And the beat goes on.